Yo, yo, yo. We are live. Should be anyway. Should be. Welcome everyone. Oh, I look a bit green in camera now. How you doing? Welcome to Music Mondays with Ben. Can't speak about yourself in third person. It just makes you sound like such an idiot, doesn't it? Welcome, welcome. We will just wait for a couple of people to join us before we get into my special guest introduction, but it's coming now 2 minutes past 8, so it shouldn't be too long at all. So yeah, let me tell you what Music Mondays is all about. So we thought it would just be good to have a discussion about music, interviewing some of the people that have been key in my life to making stuff happen. So maybe some people that I don't know as well, but just to chat all things music. We'll sometimes play some tunes. Sometimes, yeah, we'll do some singing. Sometimes it will be quite a deep, in-depth interview. Sometimes it will just be for laughs. But let us know where you are in the comments. Let us know where you're watching from. We want to hear from you. That's why we're doing it live. There's a couple of people on already. Hi, John. Hi, Nathan. There's quite a few people with us. So it's good to see you guys. Welcome. So without any further ado, let me introduce my special guest today, Dan Abbott, Sharkman Dan. How are you?
Good evening. I'm very good. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good, man. I'm good. I'm just inside, obviously, all the time as a you, even though I'm speaking to you from a totally different country.
Yes, that is correct.
Where are you at right now?
Right now, I am speaking to you from Mallorca in the Mediterranean Sea.
Now, that sounds like a really nice holiday.
Yeah.
But I think, we was just chatting beforehand. You were saying, it's like the top country corona-wise now.
Spain, yeah, mainland Spain is one of the worst hit places.
You hanging in there, though? You're good.
Yeah, Mallorca it seems to be doing okay. We're kind of just getting on with it, and people are in fairly good spirits, actually, which is
awesome, man.
Pretty good.
Awesome, man. So I first met Dan. Oh man, I should have had the date sorted out beforehand. But when do you reckon it was? Do you remember?
2000.
Not when we first met, because I think we was aware of each other before that, isn't it?
Yeah, properly, probably 2008.
2008. So, me and Dan both used to live in Essex. Do you say that proudly, or do you say that?
Yeah, sure.
So yeah, we both used to live in Essex, and Dan came along to the church that I was drumming at, but Dan had a lot more experience of doing that because he's a little bit older than me.
Thanks.
We won't talk about that. But yeah, he kind of really took me under his wing and kind of showed me all about how to play in the context of church, and took me under his wing as a drummer, really. So we became quite good friends because of that, obviously, and ended up spending quite a lot of time together. So we thought it would be good to share a bit about the old times, as well as go through what Dan is up to now, which is quite crazy, really. Dan, why don't you tell us a bit about what you're doing in Spain? Mallorca, sorry.
In Mallorca, yeah. I work as my job title here is multimedia manager. So I head up all the videos and filming production for a marine NGO, which are based here in Mallorca. My job for the last probably 4 or 5 years has been working with wildlife underwater, and most of that involves sharks, but all kinds of things like alligators and dolphins and turtles and things like that.
Love it. So yeah, you got to check out Dan's Instagram. I'll put it in the comments afterwards, only because I can't write and talk at the same time. But Dan, I guess one of the things that I want to ask you about first, just to get it off the bat, you had some viral content last year, right?
Yes. Thanks.
So talk to us about the jellyfish photo. How did that come about?
Sure. Well, I was on a filming project across the UK for a week. We're basically trying to showcase the UK's marine wildlife, which sometimes people don't associate the UK with having great marine wildlife. So we're going all over the place. We filmed seals in the Farne Islands. We filmed dolphins and minke whales in Scotland, and seabirds in other places. And the plan initially in Cornwall was to film sharks, blue sharks, but the weather turned and didn't allow us to do that. So instead, we went for a quick scuba dive. And towards the last probably 20 minutes, a very large jellyfish pondered over towards us, and I took a few photos and a few videos of it, thinking that was pretty cool. I've not seen a jellyfish that big before. And then 2 days later, it was the biggest wildlife story on the planet.
Yeah, man.
for that year.
I remember, like 5 minutes of fame in it,
Yeah.
like very much so. But when you say like a small jellyfish, though, like a big jellyfish, like,
it was.
You're talking about.
Yeah, no, it was the size of the presenter I was filming.
What's that, like 5.5 foot or something?
Yeah, I mean, Lizzie isn't the biggest of people, but I mean, she was more or less next to it when the photo was taken, and you can see she's more or less the same sort of size.
And it happened totally by chance.
Yeah, completely.
Was she scared?
No, not really of a jellyfish moving very, very slowly. I think if your job is an underwater cameraman and you're getting terrified as a slow-moving jellyfish approaches you, you're probably in the wrong job.
Yeah, true.
No, it was more, I didn't really kind of take in completely in that moment that it was how big it was and how spectacular the thing was. In those situations, when you don't know how much time you've got, you often just switch into your professional mode and, well, how can I get the best shots of it? How can I film it? Am my settings correct? Am I in its way? All that's what goes through your head first.
Yeah.
And then you kind of realize what's happened afterwards.
So I guess we'll unpack the journey, man. I can't post it as a picture comment, but man, this jellyfish you've got to see. I bet if you just Google
giant jellyfish,
and you see like this woman, like going like this, and
actually, a behind the scenes thing is if you look at any photo or any video of this jellyfish, you'll see Lizzie, the girl in the photo, holding her mask to her face because the mask was terrible. It leaked completely. And every time she got next to it, she had to press the mask against her face so it didn't completely fill of water.
Crazy. Because that can be quite dangerous, can't it? Like at like low levels. Like I remember like once, like you sent me this picture. I don't know if I should share this because like you do this as a job now, but you come out and your eyes like popped out of your head.
That's right. That was a mistake I'd made, when I hadn't equalized properly.
This was a while ago. Like
that was in South Africa. Yeah, that was in 2015.
So we'll do a bit about the journey from, I guess, where you was to, because you full-time drumming at one stage. So when me and Dan like first kind of, so I was just drumming. I used to drum a lot in church called Kingston Church in Colchester in Essex. And it was quite, what would you say, like a medium-sized church at the time when you joined?
Yeah, it felt quite big compared to the churches that I had probably been involved in up until that point.
Yeah, and anyway, like me and Dan just loved music. We was into like the same sort of band, so we used to go to a lot of Delirious gigs together. Those are the days I remember being like really, really good.
Yeah, Delirious,
And then I guess we ended up playing all these different sorts of like really cool and wonderful places. Like we basically just get in your car on a Saturday and end up driving somewhere crazy through drumming, wouldn't we? Like what are some of your highlights from that time? What are standout moments to you? Like
what, in terms of events?
Yeah, like when we was going out drumming and
that. I don't know really. Actually, in that time period, my favourite times was the Sunday mornings.
Yeah,
I used to always remember looking forward to the Sunday mornings because every Sunday morning was insane. It was so good.
I think what I remember about that time is literally, maybe because I was a bit disorganized and I was a bit younger, is like getting in your car, having no idea where we're going, and we could do literally anything from playing at a village fete to the Royal Albert Hall. Like anything between like those two things, like and we did. But yeah, you're right. Like Sunday mornings, what was so special for you about that time?
I mean, the group of people that was involved was definitely a big part of it.
Well, it was a group, and it, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. It felt like a real meaningful period of time for people that were around at that point.
Yeah, and it was like all encompassing, I guess. Like our friends were the music team were our friend. Like our rehearsals felt like just like the social sort of thing, isn't it? And just playing music with the people that you love for like a purpose that you're passionate about as well. Like, you know, being in a church context, I think it's like the greatest privilege to be a part of. But at that time, well, then we went to Momentum, didn't we?
Yes.
Summer.
Wow, yeah.
How would you describe that? What's Momentum? It's if people have heard of Soul Survivor, it's like
if you've heard of New Wine, then you've heard of Soul Survivor, and if you've heard of Soul Survivor, you've heard of Momentum. It was kind of the add-on extra bit of Soul Survivor that was more focused, perhaps for a certain age group, but also maybe
like 20s to 30s sort of thing.
Yeah.
But like, if you don't know, like, don't have any kind of context for that at all, like Soul Survivor was a massive youth event, bringing youth together from all over the country, all different sort of backgrounds of churches. So it's like I had like 15,000 people, didn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Like in its heyday, and like Momentum was a tag on to the end of that. And for me, that was like quite a crucial part of my life. And I remember going there, not really knowing what I wanted to do with my life because college wasn't working out. Really wasn't working out. I was just what I wanted to do was music all the time, but it's actually really hard to make a living from music.
Tell me about it.
I wasn't that good. Like I'm not that good of a musician. And I really felt like God speak to me in that time about becoming a worship leader, like in terms of leading from the front, like with a guitar. At that point, I'd never even picked up a guitar. You knew more guitar than me at that stage.
I don't know about that.
Yeah. And so then we came back from that time, and I remember like God just like downloading all this stuff to me, basically. And I think it was like the week after, I'd already led worship at led like times of singing at my youth group. And then like I remember asking like Dan and another geezer, I was like, can you come and like jam some songs with me in my bedroom and see if I'm any good at this sort of thing? And I was awful. Do you remember?
Oh yeah, I do actually.
Do you remember sitting in my bedroom like trying to
with a djembe?
Yeah, trying to get me to like even churn out a tune. Like I'd never even sung like in front of like the church lot before.
Yeah. I think what from what I remember from this time period that you're talking about of your kind of worship leading stuff is the development was very quick, and that was mostly because you had to, because there were moments where suddenly the church needed someone to lead worship in that moment, and it was either you or nobody. And one particular memory is when in our old church we were moving from one building to another, and we went through the middle building that we had for a little while before going to the new building, and the pastor just said, "Ben, lead us in some worship." No guitar.
Crazy.
And so there you are in front of 350 people suddenly just having to lead worship.
But you know what? I don't even know if you remember this. I remember that so clearly. I've got a weird memory for stuff like this, and so do you. So you might remember.
I know what song you sung. Yeah.
I sung a new song.
A little bit. You also sung "Name Above All Names."
Yeah. But I sung a new song with no guitar in front of 350 people with no words. Total rookie error. So it's like people will get this, and I remember like Dan just like really graciously and lovingly like speaking to me afterwards, like, so how do you feel that went? What would you do differently? I was like, yeah, I wouldn't have gone. Oh
no, you're thinking about the that's a different time. That was you're thinking about the worship time in the evening at our new building. I'm talking about when we physically walked from the old building through the middle building,
Oh yeah, man.
and then to the new one.
On the day.
On the day.
Oh yeah, man.
And that was a real moment. In fact, my dad, who, as you know, is a very wise person, he turned to me while you were doing that and said, whatever it is, he's got it. And I remember that so clearly.
Gosh, oh my days. I just remembered that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was thinking of a time a bit sooner where we'd gone and
know.
prayed around the building.
Yeah, I remember what you were talking about, and that was car crash.
You were so gracious. Oh man, that's made me quite emotional remembering that.
Yeah.
All of those.
I remember that really clearly.
It was totally acoustic, wasn't it?
You didn't even have a guitar.
Oh man,
you'd had to sing, and you just had to do it. And,
that was incredible.
That was a real moment.
Yeah,
definitely.
And then I remember, your dad took such a chance on me, because your dad was leading a youth outreach.
Still is.
Yeah, still is. Yeah,
still going.
Yeah, I don't know how to describe it. They did a lot of schools work, a lot of youth work, and they're a charity supported by loads of different churches, brought the whole of culture together, and they had a celebration or an open evening to champion their work. And Tim, your dad, took a chance. Man, I was so early on in my journey, took a chance on me leading that, and these were really well attended events, really well respected events. And he took me up. Gosh, I can't have been leading worship for 6 months or so before he let me on that platform. So I wasn't leading music regularly in church by then. He did it first. So that for me was a real breakthrough. Do you remember the set?
No, I remember what I was wearing.
Grey cardigan, black t-shirt.
It was a black shirt. Yeah.
I remember the set.
Everlasting God was in there, I think.
I've got it upstairs. It was we stand and lift up our hands. Joy of the Lord is our strength. You are the everlasting God.
Yeah, I thought that was in there.
Be thou my vision. And I did another one. It was probably How Great Is Our God or something.
Yeah.
But I do have it upstairs. I've got it printed out.
Amazing.
So yeah, that was really significant. And then, sorry, I'm not just trying to talk about me. I know I'm here to interview you, but I'm trying to give the whole thing some context. And then we went everywhere, leading. We used. Do you remember? Oh, you definitely do. And John Wester, if you're watching, you'll remember. I remember one of the funniest times. This is a bit later on. Was again, we just used to go. We used to get in this minibus and just go and lead somewhere. Sometimes it would be full of gear, and sometimes we'd rock up. And I got told it was a Salvation Army event.
Yeah, I already know where you're going with this.
But it wasn't. It was held in a Salvation Army church. So we rocked up, and I was like, don't really know much about the Salvation Army, but I imagine it'll be quite reserved. Kat's, my wife, is from a Salvation Army background, and she kind of told me some stuff about it, they don't really like repetitive stuff. Anyway, we got in. What would you describe it as, that room? Small, packed to the rafters, full of internationals, wasn't it?
Yeah. Oh yeah, there was some shofars going off, and
oh man, it was crazy. And that was one of those moments where we just kind of looked at each other, ripped up the set list. Not that we really used to. We had an idea of where we were going.
Yeah, and that's another great example of how just off the cuff, just having to deal with what you've got, and it was awesome. I remember.
Yeah, and we just
good memories of that.
Full gospel on it.
Yeah.
We tried our best to, and it kicked. I remember that being a really massive time.
Yeah.
All of these times. What were some standout moments for you? Obviously, before.
I think one of my absolute favourites, and probably always will be, is we did an event for a town-wide event at Pentecost. Was it Pentecost?
Oh man, yeah.
In Eld Lane, right in the middle of Colchester. And in all my years in drumming in Colchester, the most special times have almost always been the town-wide stuff, which I've been involved in for quite a long time. My friend Christian, when he used to lead, and this was like really significant times. And yeah, it was probably one of the best times of worship I think I've probably ever been involved with.
We had people literally jumping off pews at the end, didn't we? Like,
yeah. But it was just more that it was just the togetherness, and about the team as well. Everyone in the team was so like close together as well in terms of like all being friends. And I remember David Buckingham was playing percussion for one of the first times he's ever like been involved in an event like that. He's now probably one of the best worship drummers I can think of in church and Colchester.
Yeah, he came up the other day actually. He was so good.
Yeah, so it was that was really special, and yeah, that would probably be one of my highlights.
You're right. So how did you transition from like this life, because you're also like busking full time as well? Well, it's more than busking. Talk about iDrum.
I mean, it is. Yeah, I mean, I started a thing called iDrum, which started out actually in a church fete on a field, and then turned into a 7-8 year busking career, which was not something I was ever planning. But yeah, we would busk, but then we would also play in events and nightclubs and stuff. But actually, the busking, although the busking was the most fun, it was also the most financially rewarding, which is a very unusual thing to even be. We
were blown away, wasn't we? Like,
I mean, if you'd have told me that I could have earned a living, not just earned a living, but bought a car, and like, to be honest, all the shark stuff that I talk about now, all the camera stuff, that all came from iDrum. So yeah, really, I owe everything to this busking act, and I worked with some great drummers over the 8 years, yourself being one of them, traveling all over the UK, playing all kinds of random events, couch surfing. It was insane, and I really owe it a lot.
So how did you transition then from these like two lives? Because like you were just saying me, like, you haven't even hit a drum since Christmas, like.
Which is very strange.
How did this happen?
Well, with the money that I was making off of the drumming, I did a short bit of traveling with no real intention, firstly to America for a couple of months, and ended up seeing what I thought was a shark attack on a seal. And I've loved sharks my whole life, but never really did anything about it. And this thought in my head that I think I saw a shark attack, but I'm not 100% sure. When I say shark attack, it's attacking a seal. So that kind of stayed in my head. And then I thought, well, if I want to see a shark, I just need to go see a shark. So I booked tickets to go to South Africa, where there are plenty of great white sharks. I love
that about you. No one else does that. Well, they're in South Africa.
I mean, if you want to see one, you got to go to the places where they are. So, So I went to South Africa again for a month. The plan was just to travel around and sightsee, which is mostly what I did. But for a week in that month, I spent time in an area where there are lots of great white sharks. Went out on the boat every single day. It changed my whole way of thinking in my world, and no longer was I ashamed. Like, I've loved them my whole life, but I was never felt it was cool enough to talk about it. Like, you don't talk about sharks in Colchester. You just don't do that. But after I'd seen them, it was like, the stigma's
changed a lot around it, I think.
Oh, absolutely.
You've played a part in that, but like, it's almost cool to be a bit of a nerd now, isn't it? And like,
it's so much more. It's seen so differently now than certainly even when I was getting involved, which was, I mean, I didn't see my first shark till I was 27, so that was 2014. So it's not like, So I went to South Africa, saw a shark for the first time, and changed my way of thinking. And then the money that I was then making from drumming had a purpose, and I would use it to buy a camera, or to go on another trip, or to pay for an internship for 2 months, which then got me a job working with a cage diving company in South Africa. So everything was like built, like there was a purpose to it. And for 5 years, I built up my experience, my equipment, my understanding, my contacts, and just took every opportunity I possibly could. And I think with the drumming stuff, where it lends itself so well, if anyone who's self-employed out there will know, you are the boss of your own diary. And really what iDrum allowed me to do was to say, well, I want to take 2 months off and go and become a better scuba diver. If I work really hard for 3 months, I know I can do that. So that's really what it allowed me to do. And I will forever be grateful for that kind of lifestyle. I don't take that for granted at all, because there's no way I could have done that otherwise.
Is that like quite a difficult headspace to be in though? Like, what you really want to be doing is a couple of thousand miles away compared to what you're stuck in day to day, or you struggle with that?
Yeah,
or?
for sure. At times, yeah, absolutely. And when you follow all your favorite shark filmmakers on Instagram, that doesn't help either. But yeah, I think you kind of just have to decide what it is that you want to focus on. And I wanted to learn as much as I could about sharks and get better as a cameraman.
Yeah.
So you can't. I don't go on. I tell people I don't go on holiday anymore. I go to places where I can improve one of those two things, and that's all I did for 5 years. I would take stupid risks just to go and spend 30 seconds with a shark, which is what happened to me last summer with a basking shark in the UK. Ridiculous decision, but for me, it's where I'm focused. It's like where I'm at, and I'm the guy that will ditch you for a drink because there's an opportunity to go and film a shark.
I love that about you, though. I love it about it. And look, like, I think especially in your line of work, you have to you get one shot.
Absolutely.
As JLS say, you've only got one shot to make it count.
Yeah. Didn't Eminem say that as well at one point?
Yeah.
Pretty sure. Yeah.
Do not miss your chance.
Such good morals from these guys.
What is your wildest story from the South Africa days? What was your wildest encounter?
Do you know what? With sharks, I haven't really had one. That is a common question when you work with sharks: is have you ever been in danger? And honestly, the answer is no. I've been in situations where it's probably felt less safe than it should have been. I'm talking about things like visibility. I did do a dive where I couldn't see further than my hand, and there were 30 sharks literally bumping into me. But in terms of like scariness or encounters like that, I've never ever had a situation with a shark that I felt like this is too close, too much. That's never happened.
Is that because you're just crazy, or because that's the truth?
No, I think it's. I mean,
you just spoke about like sharks like bumping into you. Like, forget the fact that it's sharks. Like, because that's a discussion. Like, of whether we should be afraid of them. Any sort of animal bumping into me. I see a dog in the park. If it comes near me, I'm like.
For sure. Yeah. I mean, it's not ideal, but I think a lot of it is context and a lot of it is species. And as you know, every dog is different. You wouldn't judge a poodle the same way you would I
absolutely would.
Okay, fair enough. But yeah, I think knowing your species, number one. I mean, if that species was great white sharks, bull sharks, then that's a totally different situation.
Yeah, I guess like because people will hear that it's like we just saw a shark in the UK.
Exactly.
People going, where, what should I do? Should I not go out? Well, I mean, you shouldn't go out, but
not right now.
Stay at home.
Well, I mean, and the thing is within species as well, and I'm in danger of going on a shark rant here, I apologize. The thing within species as well is every personality is different. So even if you do have one species that you think is going to behave in one way or another, you might find that this one's going to behave this way and this one's going to behave another way. So really, that's when it comes down to knowing that, first of all, and then using what experience you've had to try and place this shark's personality in the context of the situation, if that makes sense. Yeah. And that's your job as a cameraman. To get good shots of an animal, you need to know how it's going to behave. But if I knew nothing about them, I wouldn't get in the water with them.
In South Africa, you actually... I don't know how to say this without it sounding weird, but you actually developed like a bond with a shark, didn't you? Like
it was one.
Yeah, of course. She just saw you and thought, "Yum," which we all do. But like you become attached to these.
Yeah, absolutely. I think
you went looking for it, right?
100%. And I think when you do spend lots of time with an individual animal and you get to know them in a certain way, if I can put it that way, then you do start feeling fairly attached to them. And yeah, absolutely. I think once you can see personality in anything, not just sharks, in anything, once you see character, you feel much more attached to it, I think.
Yeah, definitely. That's so cool. Well, man, we're going to open it up for Q&A. It's been really good. I've got some questions here online. Nathan Wallace, who I call Judas Iscariot, right? I'll tell you for why. He's just the most awesome drummer. But he's just left and gone to another church, isn't he?
That's what happens when you get really good.
That is the thing, isn't it? You think you're better than me, Nathan. Well, you are so much better than me. And do you know what, mate? Like, honestly, bless you and what you're doing, because you are so awesome. But he wants to know how you got into drumming professionally. I wonder why he's asking that.
Well, I mean, I wouldn't have called myself a professional drummer until the iDrum stuff. Although it was how I was earning most of my money, mostly through workshops in schools and doing the odd gig here and there. It wasn't really until iDrum that I could say I was comfortable financially, as comfortable as you can be being self-employed, and relying on weather.
Oh man!
It wasn't until then really that I would say I was making it as a drummer. So in my context, how did I get there? Was I by accident ended up playing drums on the street, and people started giving me money for it. I mean, you can't. There's when I talk to drummers, professional drummers, and it's exactly the same with filmmakers. It's the same sort of thing. There is no set way of doing it. There is no course you can take. There is no path you can make. There is no like individual way. This is how you become a professional drummer. This is how you become a freelance filmmaker. It doesn't work like that. You have to find what you're good at, what your niche is, work on your contacts, think about your location. And for me, I started playing drums on the street. Our first time was in Chelmsford, and I was with a 14-year-old kid, and we broke all the buckets. We broke everything, but it was like, wow, that felt quite good. I might do that again.
And you played long sets as well, like
yeah, we went for a while, 25 minutes maybe,
crazy.
So yeah, that's a pretty poorly organized answer to that question.
No, it's brilliant,
because really there is no single answer to it, if that makes sense.
No, that's good. John Westera, the main man,
legend,
a great friend of ours, has asked, from your perspective, what your mum's just commented, Psalm drummers.
Thanks, Mum.
Just that. John wants to know how, from our perspective, how has worship drumming changed from your perspective?
How has worship drumming changed?
Yeah.
From the time that I first started drumming, presumably. Yeah. I mean, the songs have changed, so the drumming has to change. That's the first thing. When I was first drumming in churches, there wasn't a whole load of creative variation to be had in a lot of the songs. And of course, now everything is a lot more electronic, it feels like, in a lot of contexts. So learning how to use something like a sampling pad, learning how to play to a click track, learning how to think about backing tracks, that's all changed.
You were so ahead of the curve on that. I remember you like showing me Ableton and loops and stuff and using loops, and I was like, whoa, I can't I'm not ready for this. Like at the time we weren't even playing to click, so for you to be like introducing this stuff, I was like, oh no.
Well,
I mean, now I do it every week.
Yeah,
literally every week.
I think you naturally in that environment, you see someone doing something and you get inspired by it and you want to try and do it yourself. So it's something that within the church world is quite available to everybody, because there's churches doing that to a really high standard and there's churches not doing that at all. So you've kind of got a lot of scope and spectrum of learning from other people. And the drummers that I was watching at the time, this was a very kind of worship central
Stu Smith.
kind of, well, no, I mean, not even that far back, like more recent than that, I would say. Like Tim Cook was very instrumental in that sort of thing.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was just through watching other people doing it and then trying to stumble your way through it yourself and figure it out. I would certainly not say I was very good at all that side of things. I just roughly knew how to try and mash it together.
Well, we're not like taught as well, which I think like we've never really had lessons. Have you had lessons?
When I was about 7 or 8.
Yeah,
not
we're kind of like self-taught in a lot of we do. Like I would say like the biggest thing that's changed is like the cymbals have got way bigger.
Oh yes,
and way
absolutely.
looser.
Anything less than an 18-inch shouldn't be on.
Not 18-inch hats.
Yeah, well, that's what I meant. I was talking about hats.
Yeah, we're gonna get a splash.
Yeah,
I'm getting a bit nerdy now.
It was Paul Evans that used to say that anything less than a 19-inch just feels like a splash.
Couldn't
I
agree
adopted
more.
that. Yeah,
couldn't agree more. I'm just looking for some more questions, guys. If you've got questions, please send them in. David Buckingham's been on saying thanks for the shout out. We love you, David. Man, he is such a good drummer. He came up and played here the other day, as in at the Forge, and just he rocked my world. I'd not heard him play since I've been up here. Boy, he's like, he has his Weetabix, isn't it?
Yeah.
He's had his Weetabix and he's just absolutely on it. Absolutely fantastic. Ruth saying, so I don't know what that's about. Maybe we've frozen or something. From Dean. You'll like this one. A shark as a specific... Sorry, let me read it in my head, then I'll read it to you.
Go for it.
Are sharks as a species affected by climate change? So are you seeing different patterns to migration throughout the oceans? God, what an intellectual...
Yeah, absolutely. 100%. Even if the sharks aren't impacted directly, if the prey that they are relying on is changing and moving around, then yes, absolutely.
What do sharks eat?
All depends on the species.
Right.
Everything from small fish to scavenging on large whales. So it all depends on what it is that they're following. And most notably, the one that is probably the one that scientists are studying the most at the moment is the blacktip migration, which goes down the coast of Florida every winter. And they're seeing less and less blacktips moving because of the waters are staying warmer for longer. So there's less for them to feed on. So yes is the short answer to that one.
Have I made this up, or I seem to remember like a little while ago we were tracking some shark from like Florida or something because it was nearly coming to our ocean.
Yeah, that was quite a few years ago. Yeah,
it's weird what you remember.
That was a shark called Lydia, which made it to the North Atlantic Ridge, which is more or less halfway between America and the UK. And so
not that close.
And the UK's press absolutely loved it, that there was a shark heading for our beaches.
You've actually done quite a lot of work to like, I don't know if come against the press is the right word, but like get rid of a lot of the stigma surrounding sharks and that. I think.
Yeah, I think it's more just highlighting where the errors are, and actually, I would say now the general public are far more clued up to this sort of stuff than when I started. I guess doing all that sort of stuff in about 2015. I think now kind of people, there's a lot more information now, and people know that if you, the sharks aren't just ruthless all the time, and it's not I mean, I'd like to think that it definitely feels that that's the case.
Well, it does to me, but I think I was naive, as everyone is, before like speaking to you about it and stuff, and being like, "What you're gonna get." You're going to get in the water with great whites, like these big 6 foot.
In Essex and Suffolk, how many shark conversations do we have? It's not really a normal topic of conversation.
In Essex.
Yeah, that's
lions to deal with. That was a fun day. Jenny has asked if you can take her to swim with sharks.
Of course. There are sharks in the UK. Last summer, I had 2 phenomenal encounters, probably 2 of my favorite encounters, in fact, with sharks anywhere in the world. One in Scotland and one in Cornwall. And in Cornwall, you can dive with blue sharks in the summertime. They are a bit far offshore, so you'll need a boat, but they are one of the best shark species to be in the water with. They are just the most, I would go as far as to say, playful, curious animals that I've ever been in the water with. So much fun. And I was with a girl who had never seen a shark before in her life. It was like her lifelong dream. So I said, right, you're coming with me. And she just loved it. Like we couldn't get her out of the water.
And you don't need cages and
no. I mean, the reason you have a cage is when you're diving with white sharks. There's so much stigma attached to white sharks, and they are a protected species. So you really don't want everyone just swimming over to them.
Because I see there's such a mixed. You see these videos floating around on Facebook, like of people swimming next to these massive sharks, and they're touching them and that. And I'm like, should you be doing that? Like, not because like even a danger thing. It's just like, well, you wouldn't just like walk by me and start touching me. Like, what are you doing? Cat's in the background having a snack. I think if you can hear something. She can't hear you. I've got my ears in.
Of course. Yeah, the whole touching debate is a big one, which comes up every time a video like that surfaces. It's down to the individual. Usually, when you see someone doing that, they are some kind of, I don't want to say the word shark expert, but they're someone that knows sharks quite well.
Yeah.
But the problem with that, of course, is that if you see someone doing that, then you're going to assume that you can also do that, and you're not a shark expert. And
a shexpert.
Exactly. Yes.
They're definitely not called that, and they shouldn't be.
So yeah, that is a problem for those reasons. I personally, I don't. I've had many opportunities to. Personally, I don't, just because if you pet a shark, then you're, in my opinion, you're kind of saying to that shark, well, I'm going to treat you the same way I would a dog or a cat. And to me, they're not the same as a dog.
More
or a
like
cat. Yeah,
respect, I guess.
100%. I feel the best way I can respect this animal, even if I have laid down next to a lemon shark in the Bahamas, eyeball to eyeball, and almost said out loud in my regulator, I'm not going to touch you, because this is how I want to respect you.
Respect.
So that comes down to the individual.
The respect. Is it just sharks? Someone's asked, or other marine wildlife you're interested in? I've seen you with penguins. With mate, you did some crazy stuff with alligators and crocodiles, and
yeah.
I've seen you stand next to a crocodile like it was just like a pussycat.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, alligators are also very personality driven. So alligators will display not a lot of body language, but I love all marine life for sure, but I tend to always be drawn towards the predators. I think the stuff with big teeth, that's the stuff
You're a thrill seeker.
I do really like. Not even that. I think they're the ones that when I was a kid, they were the more exciting.
Yeah.
Same on land, like lions and tigers. Like I'm always more interested in the big predators and
of course.
Orcas. Just like the stuff that does the killing is normally the one that I'm cheering for.
The ones they make movies about.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
it is, isn't it? This is a really good question, actually. Like, we're hopping between sharks and worship, but that's exactly why I wanted to get you on. In what way can worship leaders help develop drummers in a team context? You go, and then I'll give a bit of insight into that.
Superb question. In what way can worship leaders develop drummers?
Help develop drummers in a team context.
Well, I think if a worship leader can give him or herself a little bit of understanding of the language that a drummer is looking for. Some of the best worship leaders I've
play
drummed
the big
for.
one.
Exactly. Yeah. Some of the best worship leaders I've drummed for have also been drummers in some capacity, and just for them to be able to turn around and say, "Can you just build this 4 bars or here or here," or naming the drums. That once you start talking a drummer's language, because let's face it, drummers do talk a different language. That really helps the drummer feel more at ease, I think. So that's a really useful thing. But also telling the drummer quite clearly what it is that you want. A lot of worship leaders will kind of leave their drummer alone and let them just kind of cobble their way through the song, and it's up to the drummer to decide when we drop, when we build, and really it should be up to you to decide when you build and when you drop. So just having that level of communication, and again, the best worship leaders I've played for have always had some level of communication, even if they didn't have to turn around, you kind of knew where they were at.
It's awesome when you get to that point where you don't, it's like telepathy.
But that only comes from one, the drummer understanding what those signals are, but also the worship leader being quite good at communicating them. So that's a two-way.
I think like
that might be my answer.
Yeah, that's really good. That's gold. I think for me, I've got this whole thing at the moment of just giving people a shot, like believing in people. Like, no one's ready, no one's the finished article, no one's the best, and if they're a good player, they've normally got a bad attitude, and if they're got a great attitude, they're normally a bad player. Like, just take a chance on people, and believe in people would be like my advice for that. Leah's asked a question. This is a really good question. How did your faith affect your change in career?
Wow.
That's deep.
Yeah, that really is.
You tell Leah's she's a really intelligent person.
Wow. Well, I think what I did start noticing when I was spending more time underwater than I was behind a drum kit is that I was finding God, or finding the appreciation for God's creation in much easier places. And I do very, very specifically remember on my second ever scuba dive with sharks, just being incredibly, I guess, in awe and humbled perhaps by creation. And even though that took the form in that particular moment of a 2.5 meter oceanic blacktip shark who was swimming straight towards me, that was a moment of, do you know what? Well played. Like, that is a heck of an animal.
Well done.
Yeah, so that was probably the change, because previously, like, my faith, I would say up until the shark stuff, had been very much sat behind a drum kit a lot of the time.
It's an identity thing,
Mhm.
isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah.
Which, so it must be difficult to transition from, like, it's sometimes our faith is more about what we do than who we are.
Yes.
So I think it's a good exercise to break out of that.
Yes, definitely.
So I'll always, like, encourage my team, like, don't be on every week, because you've got your skill. I mean, like, without getting too dark, like, you've got your skills, but they can go.
Yeah.
Then what are you going to do?
Yeah.
Are you still going to believe what you believe? Are you still going to have your priorities that you have? Like, take some time to be in the rows, because I think that's huge, isn't it? Like, actually, one guy in our team, we was kind of discussing this with, and all of a sudden, like, he's a drummer, and then he had a problem with his hands, and he couldn't drum for about 6 months, and it's all of a sudden you're like, whoa, like, what do I do? Where's my place?
Yeah, that is the risk, isn't it, of putting all your identity in what you do.
Yeah. So it's amazing that you've managed to connect with God outside of church, outside of what you do, and it's more about where we are and who we worship.
I mean, when you start filming wildlife and landscapes, you're suddenly very much exposed to the wonders of nature and the wonders of, creation.
Yeah,
perhaps a lot more than you would be if you were sat behind a drum kit.
Yeah. Well, man, I appreciate you coming on so much. We might have some more questions, but I do just want to finish with probably our favorite story. You want to tell it on me?
I kind of want to hear your version.
I'll probably exaggerate it. Like,
should I set it up? I'll set it up, and then you tell what happened.
Okay, go on.
So in the process of trying to be good at technology, I had bought an SPDS sampling pad, where you can trigger what's happening on the laptop. You USB stick, USB cable, and it will control the laptop. Really, really handy for playing samples and things like that. I was also starting to use that pad for iDrum, the busking thing. So I started loading our songs onto the pad at the same time, but on a different patch. It was out of the way. So I had one patch, which, one setting for the church stuff and one setting for the iDrum stuff. So I had my SPDS next to me every time that I would play drums, whether it was church or iDrum.
And then, so I remember I was leading, right?
Yeah.
And I think I might have made this up, because I've told this story a few times, but I think I literally remember playing Waiting Here For You, waiting here for you, with our hands lifted high in praise, singing that song. And I just was like, do you know what? I really just feel like we should just sit in the music. Whether I said this, I don't think I did, but, like, as a band, we just had these long kind of open spaces, didn't we? And like, Dan, like, used to have these, like, amazing kind of swells and pads and stuff. So we just kind of, like, decided to sit back in the music and just use it as a time to hear from God. We just sang Waiting Here For You, God, we're waiting for you to move. We're waiting for you to come. So I then signaled to Dan to turn his pad on, to get this atmosphere going. And out through the PA, louder, I don't know how it was so much louder than anything else, came the song. Well, came the whole lyric. Come on, rude boy, can you get it up?
So I had miscounted my settings on my SPDS, and I was no longer on the setting that was controlling my laptop. I was on the setting controlling my iDrum songs,
which went down great on Chelmsford High Street, but when that just came in,
I didn't hear it at first.
Did you not?
I thought I was hearing it in my ears, and no one else was hearing it. So I just turned it off. And
what did I do? What did I do?
You turned around and laughed at me, and I laughed, and I think kind of called it. We said, "Well, we'll stop there." I think.
Yeah. I tend to just call these things that. There's no coming back from.
When I was walking from the stage to the back of the room, I walked past quite an elderly lady, and as I walked past her, she looked at me and said, "Oh, rude boy, eh?"
Oh man, that congregation's like, Dan, it's been so good to chat. Like, we've had some amazing time. I mean, we didn't get onto some of the stuff. We could sit here and chat for hours, but thanks so much for joining us.
Pleasure.
Plug your stuff. Where can people find you? What can people do to?
Well, I guess my own photos and videos, Instagram probably. Sharkman Dan is my social media.
Can I just say that I convinced you to change your social media to that?
Was it you?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Credit me there.
A lot of people were pushing me to do it.
No,
but yeah, it might have been. You might have been the final.
I think that's probably the first as well.
Possibly the first. Yeah. So yeah, I would say that's probably the main place, and then the filming that I do for other productions, obviously that's on different social medias, but I tend to share it in some capacity online.
Yeah, because you just come back from Iceland. You literally just made it back
like
an hour before they shut.
Yeah, it was very close.
Yeah. So we look forward to seeing that. Can you say where that is? Can you talk about that?
That will be posted on Berghaus and Black's websites, but I'll also be putting some of it on mine on my social media as well, I think.
Awesome. Well, if you've got any more questions for us, then we'll definitely get back to you in the comments. Dan, can you go? You can go and hover around in the comments for a bit.
Of course.
We'll just watch stuff. I think I'm going to go watch Sunderland Till I Die now. Have you seen it?
I haven't yet, no.
Oh, mate, you would love that show.
I've just finished watching Tiger King.
Now, I was going to talk to you about how long we got. Let's just spend 5 minutes on Tiger King. One, Carol Baskin. Guilty?
Not sure.
Okay. And what about him? Guilty?
Yeah, I think he's a bit crazy.
I think he's loopy-doo. But then I just saw the other day, because I didn't really get into it, but I just saw that Louis Theroux did something with him before that.
That's how I know him.
So that's what I'm going to watch, because Louis Theroux just...
And that was years and years beforehand.
Was it? Ages before?
Yeah, he was still married to... I don't want to give it away to anyone, but he was still married to both guys at that point.
This guy's an absolute
machine.
I mean, he is crazy. Yeah, thanks so much for joining us.
Pleasure.
I'll be back next Monday without Dan, but with a very special guest. I've emailed so many people to be guests that if half of them come off, this is going to be amazing. But we'll struggle to beat my good friend Dan here. And I actually don't know how to end this. So I'll just WhatsApp you if it kicks you off.
Okay.
Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next week, guys.